Imagine you're excavating an ancient Egyptian palace. As you dig deeper into the ground, you come across several mysterious pits. At first, you assume they might contain treasure, statues, or artifacts belonging to a forgotten king. But as the soil is carefully removed, something far more disturbing begins to emerge. Human hands, 16 of them. And the strangest part? Every single one was a right hand. The question was simple, yet chilling. Why were 16 severed human hands carefully buried here more than 3,600 years ago? The answer takes us into one of the most fascinating and brutal chapters of ancient Egyptian history. Between 2011 and 2012, a team of Austrian and Egyptian archaeologists was excavating the site of Tel El Daba in Egypt's Nile Delta. Today, it's little more than a collection of ruins, but around 3,600 years ago, this was the ancient city of Avaris, the capital of the Hyksos Kingdom. The Hyksos were foreign rulers who once controlled northern Egypt, and one of their most powerful kings was a ruler known as Kian. During the excavation, archaeologists discovered 3 separate pits located directly in front of a royal palace. When the pits were opened, the team was stunned. Inside were 16 severed human right hands. Now think about that for a moment. If these hands had simply been removed after a battle, you might expect them to be discarded in a pile somewhere. But that wasn't the case. Each hand had been placed carefully. The fingers were spread apart. Most of the palms faced upward. The entire arrangement appeared deliberate, almost ceremonial. It looked less like a mass disposal site and more like part of an official ritual. Scientists conducted a detailed analysis of the remains. They determined that the hands belonged to at least 12 different individuals. Most were adult males, although a few may have belonged to women or younger individuals. But one question remained. Why were these hands cut off in the first place? At first, some researchers wondered if they belonged to criminals who had been punished. However, the evidence told a different story. The hands had been removed with remarkable precision. There were no signs of careless hacking or violent damage to the bones. Whoever performed the procedure knew exactly what they were doing. This wasn't mob violence. It was an organized and official practice. And that's where the most fascinating part of the story begins. Ancient Egyptian inscriptions and artwork describe a strange military tradition. After killing an enemy in battle, a soldier would cut off the enemy's right hand and present it to the king. The hand served as proof of the kill. In return, the soldier could receive honors, rewards, and sometimes valuable gold ornaments. Ancient texts refer to this reward as the gold of honor. For centuries, historians knew about this practice only from inscriptions, paintings, and written records. But they had never found physical evidence that it actually happened. Then came the discovery at Tel El Daba. For the first time, something that had existed only in ancient texts was found buried beneath the earth. A real-world confirmation of a practice that historians had debated for generations. Personally, I don't think the most unsettling part of this discovery is the hands themselves. It's what they represented. Today, soldiers are awarded medals, ribbons, and trophies. But 3,600 years ago, a warrior's success could be measured by the number of severed enemy hands placed before a king. That's a very different world. And despite everything we've learned, the mystery isn't fully solved. Researchers still don't know if every hand belonged to an enemy killed in battle. Could some have belonged to rebels or prisoners? Was this ceremony performed only once? Or was it a regular tradition? And perhaps the biggest question of all? Did the Hyksos introduce this practice? Or did later Egyptian rulers adopt it from them? Even today, those questions remain unanswered. But one thing is certain. The 16 severed hands discovered at Tel El Daba are more than just human remains. They are a frozen moment from a world of warfare, power, and honor that existed more than 3,500 years ago. And maybe that's what makes history so fascinating.
What if I told you that 30,000 years ago, 2 children were buried with the kind of wealth and honor you might expect from ancient royalty? It sounds unbelievable, but a mysterious grave discovered in Russia has forced historians to rethink what they know about some of the earliest human societies. This is the story of the Sungir double burial. In 1955, construction workers near the city of Vladimir, in what was then the Soviet Union, modern-day Russia, accidentally uncovered human bones. Archaeologists were called in, and what they discovered would become one of the most important prehistoric burial sites ever found. The site became known as Sungir. Scientific analysis revealed that the burials were between 30,000 and 34,000 years old. To put that into perspective, these graves are roughly 25,000 years older than the Great Pyramids of Egypt. But the most remarkable discovery was still waiting to be uncovered. Archaeologists found a shared grave containing two children. The children had been buried head-to-head with a long mammoth ivory spear placed between them. Studies later showed that one child was around 12 or 13 years old, while the other was approximately 9 or 10. At first, the burial seemed unusual. But it wasn't until researchers began cataloging the objects inside the grave that the real mystery emerged. The children had been buried with more than 10,000 ivory beads. There were also around 300 perforated fox teeth, ivory ornaments, bracelets, decorative items, and several rare artifacts. Experts estimate that crafting the beads alone would have required thousands of hours of labor. And that raises an obvious question. Why were two children given such an extraordinary burial? The mystery deepened even further when scientists examined their skeletons. Researchers found evidence of physical abnormalities in both children. One appeared to have significant issues affecting the bones in his legs. The other showed signs of developmental abnormalities. In other words, these weren't famous hunters, powerful warriors, or accomplished leaders. Yet, they received a burial more elaborate than what most adults of their time could have ever expected. And that's where Sungir challenged one of archaeology's long-held assumptions. For decades, many researchers believed that Ice Age hunter-gatherer societies were largely egalitarian. No kings, no social classes, no inherited status. But the Sungir burial suggested something very different. It hinted that some people may have been born into special status thousands of years before the rise of cities, kingdoms, or organized states. Then, in 2017, DNA analysis added another layer to the mystery. Scientists discovered that the two children were not closely related siblings. In fact, they didn't appear to belong to the same immediate family at all. The findings suggested that these ancient communities may have been far more socially complex than anyone had previously imagined. And the mystery doesn't end there. Elsewhere, in the same cemetery, archaeologists discovered an adult male known as Sungir I. He too had been buried with thousands of ivory beads and valuable grave goods. Clearly, certain individuals within this society were being treated very differently from others. Personally, I don't think the most fascinating part of this discovery is the incredible wealth found in the grave. It's the question that still remains unanswered. Why were these children considered so important? Were they members of a special family? Did they hold some kind of spiritual significance? Or was there a social system at work that we still don't fully understand? Even after decades of research, nobody knows for sure. But one thing is certain. The mysterious Sungir burial tells us that the story of social status, prestige, and human hierarchy may be tens of thousands of years older than we once believed. Imagine this for a moment. If someone died today, and their tomb was opened 2,100 years from now, what would you expect to find? A few bones, maybe? A dried-out skeleton? Perhaps nothing at all. But in China, archaeologists discovered a woman whose skin was still soft, whose limbs could still be bent, and whose internal organs were astonishingly well preserved. This is the story of one of the most extraordinary mummies ever discovered, Lady Di. In 1971, workers near the city of Changsha in China's Hunan province were digging an underground air raid shelter when they stumbled upon signs of an ancient tomb hidden beneath the ground. Archaeologists were called in, and it quickly became clear that this was no ordinary burial site. The tomb belonged to an incredibly wealthy and powerful family from China's Western Han dynasty. Inside, they discovered the remains of a woman named Xin Zhui, better known today as Lady Di. She was the wife of Li Kang, a high-ranking official of the Han Empire, and she is believed to have died around 168 BC. But the real shock came when her coffin was opened. The tomb was more than 2,100 years old, yet her body looked nothing like a typical mummy. Her skin was still soft. Her arms and legs could still be moved. Her hair remained intact. And perhaps most astonishing of all, many of her internal organs were still preserved. Scientists had never seen anything quite like it. The tomb itself was equally impressive. More than 1,000 artifacts were discovered inside, including silk garments, cosmetics, food, musical instruments, wooden figurines, and countless luxury items. It was as if her family had packed everything she might need for the afterlife. But the mystery didn't end there. When researchers opened her coffin, they found Lady Di's body submerged in a strange reddish-brown liquid. Scientists analyzed the fluid and discovered traces of minerals and mildly acidic compounds. Yet even today, nobody knows exactly where the liquid came from or how much it contributed to preserving her body. After years of research, experts concluded that the liquid alone couldn't explain her remarkable condition. Lady Di had been wrapped in multiple layers of silk. She was placed inside 4 nested coffins. The coffins were surrounded by thick layers of charcoal, and the entire tomb had been sealed with a special clay that prevented oxygen from entering. Without oxygen, bacteria had little chance to break down the body. Because her remains were so well preserved, scientists were even able to perform a modern-style autopsy. The results revealed a surprising amount about her life. Lady Di suffered from obesity, high cholesterol, clogged arteries, and several other health problems. Researchers believe she most likely died from a heart attack at around 50 years of age. But perhaps the most fascinating discovery came from her stomach. Scientists found 138 melon seeds inside her digestive tract. This revealed that she had eaten melons shortly before her death. Think about that for a second. More than 2,000 years later, researchers were still able to determine what she ate during the final hours of her life. To me, the most incredible part of this story isn't simply how well her body was preserved. It's the fact that a woman who died over 2 millennia ago can still tell us about her health, her lifestyle, and even her last meal. Today, Lady Di's remains are preserved in the Hunan Museum, where they continue to be studied by scientists from around the world. And despite more than 50 years of research, one question remains unanswered. How did her body survive in such an extraordinary condition for over 2,100 years? Perhaps that's exactly what makes Lady Di one of the most fascinating and mysterious mummies ever discovered.
If you enjoyed this journey into history's greatest mysteries, don't forget to subscribe to Nens Chronicles and turn on notifications. Until next time, keep questioning the past, because some mysteries are still waiting to be solved.